How does a company, a household name, an American institution, simply lose $90 billion in value? That isn't a hypothetical question. It is the story of Walgreens. Just a few years ago, the pharmacy was an unshakable blue-chip giant, marching confidently towards a $100 billion valuation. It was a permanent fixture on the US high street. Today, it's a financial ruin. Its stock has been decimated, its reputation lies in tatters, and it's been forced into a desperate fire sale to private equity just to survive.
Uncertain future for Walgreens. The Deerfield-based pharmacy is pushing back on reports it might sell to a private equity firm.
Walgreens reporting a net loss of $3.7 billion for its first fiscal quarter.
This is the story of how over a century of public trust was destroyed by a decade of bad decisions, crippling debt, and a devastating scandal that would cost Walgreens everything. And it's a stark warning that even the biggest companies can collapse when leverage replaces innovation. The story begins in 1901 with Charles R. Walgreens Sr., a pharmacist with a revolutionary vision who bought the Chicago drugstore where he worked. In an era of badly lit, cluttered apothecaries, he created stores that were bright, organized, and welcoming. His most famous invention, however, wasn't medical. It was the malted milkshake. By installing full-service soda fountains, he transformed the pharmacy from a place for just sick people into a community gathering spot. It was a brilliant move that drove incredible foot traffic and built a fiercely loyal customer base that spanned generations. The spirit of innovation defined Walgreens for the next century. Through the Great Depression, while thousands of businesses were failing, Walgreens didn't just survive, it expanded, growing to over 500 stores by the 1930s. In the 1950s, it pioneered the self-service retail model that is now standard in drugstores worldwide, a radical idea at the time. But its most significant change came in 1981, when it launched Intercom, a revolutionary computer system that connected its entire pharmacy network via satellite. Suddenly, your prescription records could be accessed securely at any Walgreens in the country. It was a massive leap forward in convenience and safety, cementing Walgreens' reputation as a forward-thinking, technologically advanced leader in its field. The company's growth seemed unstoppable. By the early 2010s, Walgreens was at the pinnacle of its power, a blue-chip stock and an unshakable pillar of American business. But deep within, the seeds of its destruction were already being sown, fed by unchecked ambition and a fatal overconfidence. The first and arguably most fateful misstep came in 2014, when Walgreens completed its merger with the European pharmacy giant Alliance Boots. It created Walgreens Boots Alliance, WBA, a company with a massive international footprint. On paper, the deal looked like a brilliant move, but the merger was about to backfire spectacularly. Instead of turning two local giants into an international behemoth, the deal cursed Walgreens with an enormous pile of debt and a complex, unwieldy corporate structure. The company's laser-sharp focus on the US market was spread thin across different continents, regulations, and consumer habits. The plan was to make everything more efficient and global, but that never happened. The merger ended up being far more difficult and expensive than anticipated. Alliance Boots, rather than helping the growth of both companies to be plain sailing, became a financial anchor, weighing them both down just as the American retail landscape was about to be turned upside down. While Walgreens was struggling to put its international boots on, its main rival, CVS, was making a much smarter move in the US. In 2018, CVS acquired the health insurance giant Aetna for $69 billion. This was genius. CVS could now not only fill people's prescriptions, but also manage patient care and process insurance claims through an app, creating value and customer ease at every step of the healthcare journey. As if this wasn't enough, they also had to contend with a new digital rival that was already destroying everything in its path: Amazon. The tech giant's acquisition of the online pharmacy PillPack in 2018, followed by the launch of Amazon Pharmacy, was a direct assault on the traditional drugstore model. Amazon began siphoning off the most profitable pharmacy customers, the ones with simple, recurring maintenance prescriptions who valued price and at-home delivery above all else. The impact was twofold and devastating. Not only did Walgreens lose valuable prescription revenue, but the crucial foot traffic that came with it vanished. When customers no longer need to enter a store to pick up their medication, they also stop buying the high-margin retail goods, from cosmetics to greeting cards, that pharmacy chains rely on to stay profitable. Distracted by its internal chaos and saddled with debt, Walgreens was woefully unprepared to fight a war of convenience and logistics against a company that had mastered both. Still, they tried to respond. They poured billions of dollars into a partnership with the primary care clinic operator VillageMD, eventually buying a majority stake. The vision was to create 500 to 700 Village Medical at Walgreens within its pharmacies. But unlike the CVS Aetna powerhouse, Walgreens' strategy was fragmented and fundamentally flawed. It was buying the clinics without buying the insurance network to feed a steady stream of patients into them. The result was a financial catastrophe. The clinics were incredibly expensive to build and operate, and they bled money. The company's failed healthcare strategy was cited as a key reason for its downfall, leading to massive financial losses and the closure of dozens of clinics. The once cautious, methodical innovator had become a reckless gambler, and the bets weren't paying off. The financial bleeding from the VillageMD venture was not a slow leak. It was like a faucet opening. By early 2024, the company was forced to take a staggering impairment charge, writing down the value of its investment by nearly $6 billion. This was more than an accounting problem. It was a public admission that the billions poured into the strategy were gone, with no path to profitability in sight. The company announced it would be closing around 150 clinic locations, a humiliating retreat from its grand vision of becoming an integrated healthcare destination. The money lost from this failed experiment could have been used to pay down debt or invest in logistics to fight Amazon. Instead, it accelerated the company's downfall. As Walgreens' blunders were piling up, a darker story was unfolding at its pharmacy counters. The company found itself at the center of the American opioid crisis, facing thousands of lawsuits from state and local governments. The allegations were damning. The lawsuits claimed that for years, Walgreens had ignored its legal obligations. It was supposed to stop suspicious orders of prescription painkillers, and it hadn't, flooding communities with highly addictive pills. Whistleblowers came forward who claimed that speed and volume, profits in other words, came before patient safety, and internal documents corroborated many of those claims. Federal investigators found that for years, Walgreens' own systems had flagged thousands of suspicious prescribers, but the company had filled their orders anyway, without doing anything close to an adequate investigation. In some cases, pharmacists were dispensing enormous quantities of highly addictive painkillers for prescriptions written by doctors hundreds of miles away, a classic red flag for illegal pill mills that was repeatedly ignored. The pressure to meet performance metrics created an environment where due diligence was secondary to speed, turning trusted community pharmacies into one of the largest and most dangerous distribution channels for a national crisis. And with that loss of trust came a legal and financial reckoning. In November 2022, Walgreens announced it had reached an agreement in principle for a multi-state settlement framework that would see it pay approximately $4.8 billion over 15 years. This was on top of numerous other settlements with individual states, cities, and tribal nations. In a separate case, the company agreed to pay $350 million to settle claims with the Department of Justice that it illegally filled unlawful opioid prescriptions and submitted the claims to federal healthcare programs. Walgreens consistently denied wrongdoing, stating they were in the best interest of the company and its stakeholders, but the damage was done. The sheer scale of the settlements was a crushing blow, and the headlines stained the reputation of a brand that was built on trust. The name Walgreens was now inextricably linked to one of the deadliest public health crises in American history. By the early 2020s, a perfect storm had arrived. The mountain of debt from the Alliance Boots merger, the disastrous foray into private care, the billions in opioid settlements, and the steady decay of its core retail business all converged. The company's financials told a brutal story of decline. A revolving door of CEOs failed to stop the bleeding. In 2021, the company brought in Rosalind Brewer, a high-profile executive from Starbucks, as CEO in 2021, with a mandate to do whatever she had to do to turn things around. But she was handed an impossible task: trying to build a new healthcare business on the crumbling foundations of the old retail one, all while wrestling with the massive debt from the Boots acquisition. Just over 2 years and a plunging stock price made her job near impossible. It was all a clear sign that the board's strategy had failed and that no single leader could fix the deep structural problems that plagued the company. Her exit was followed by a period of uncertainty. The stock price, which had traded above $95 a share in 2015, began a relentless slide. By June 2024, it had crashed by over 24%, wiping out tens of billions of dollars in shareholder value and hitting its lowest point in decades. Then, in a stunning admission of financial distress, the company announced in early 2025 that it was slashing its dividend payouts, a move that sent a clear signal to Wall Street that they were in deep trouble. That same month, the company announced wave after wave of store closures. First, hundreds, then potentially up to a quarter of its US locations. This new strategy, dubbed shrink to core, was a grim reversal of its century-long expansion. For countless communities, this meant the loss of their local pharmacy, creating pharmacy deserts, and leaving vulnerable populations without convenient access to essential healthcare services. Walgreens was trying to survive by amputating its least profitable parts. This was visible to anyone who walked through the doors. Their shrink-to-core strategy meant understaffed stores and demoralized employees. Customers who for generations had relied on Walgreens for quick and reliable service were now met with long lines at the pharmacy counter and empty shelves in the aisles. The company blamed its poor performance on a surge in organized retail crime, or shrink, locking up more and more products. However, this narrative backfired when an executive admitted they might have overstated the problem, adding another layer of mismanagement and perceived dishonesty to the public's perception of the company. The final act began in December 2024, when the Wall Street Journal reported that Sycamore Partners, a private equity firm with a reputation for acquiring distressed retail assets, was in talks to buy Walgreens Boots Alliance. The deal, which was agreed in March, approved in July, and finalized in August 2025, valued the company at a mere $10 billion, a stunning 90% collapse from its peak. Walgreens was being taken private to be sold for parts in a desperate bid to manage its colossal debt and begin an uncertain future out of the public spotlight. So what, in the end, brought down this $100 billion giant? There were a few things. One was the Alliance Boots merger, a deal that prioritized global scale over domestic focus and financial prudence. Another was the envy-driven, poorly executed pivot into healthcare, a desperate attempt to copy a rival's strategy without understanding the key components that made it work. A third factor was the profound ethical and legal failures that entangled the company in the opioid crisis, costing it billions of dollars and, more importantly, the public's trust. But underneath all of this was a deeper problem. Walgreens forgot what it was. It stopped being a nimble innovator focused on the customer experience, malted milkshakes, and satellite networks. Instead, it became a lumbering, debt-ridden bureaucracy, chasing costly deals and growth as a substitute for genuine, incremental innovation. The story of Walgreens is more than just a business school case study. It's a profound cautionary tale. It shows how quickly a legacy can be squandered and how even a company that seems like an essential, permanent part of our lives can be brought to its knees. The forces of competition from CVS to Amazon are relentless. But in the end, Walgreens' greatest enemy wasn't a competitor. It was itself. Its collapse is the ultimate proof of a harsh business truth. Even staples collapse when leverage replaces innovation. If you enjoyed this video and want more stories of corporate collapse and how even the giants can fall, click above to see how Beyond Meat fell from a $10 billion success story to a company in financial crisis.